Let's start with the creepy ones and slowly work our way towards the most terrifying gods you've never heard of on the list. Number 6. Wero. The Maori of New Zealand had this god of darkness and evil named Wero, and his origin story alone is pure nightmare material. According to tradition, he was supposed to rule the heavens but lost a fight to his brother and got cast down into the underworld. Except instead of accepting defeat, Wero spent eternity trying to drag every living human down with him. He was described as the source of all evil thoughts, disease, and death. Maori oral histories say he'd send demons up through the earth to possess people, making them violent or suicidal. The physical descriptions are wild, a being of pure darkness that could slip through any crack, whose presence made your organs fail. But here's the really disturbing part. Wero was blamed for intrusive thoughts. If you suddenly had the urge to hurt yourself or someone else, that was Wero whispering. If you woke up from a nightmare unable to move, that was Wero sitting on your chest. The Maori developed an entire psychological framework around him, essentially early mental health documentation, that attributed every dark impulse to this entity. Some tribal elders wouldn't speak his name after sunset because they believed acknowledging him in darkness gave him power. Modern analysis of these traditions shows they might have been describing symptoms of depression, PTSD, and intrusive thought disorders, but they experienced it as literal demonic attack. Number 5. Allah. Okay, so the Igbo people of Nigeria had this earth goddess named Allah, and on paper she sounds reasonable. Fertility, harvest, morality, great, except Allah had one rule. Don't disrespect the earth, and her definition of disrespect was absolutely insane. Killing a python? Abomination. Giving birth to twins? Abomination. Cutting down certain trees? Abomination. Stepping on specific patches of ground? Abomination. The punishment for breaking any of Allah's rules was always the same. You and everyone related to you would suffer until you performed a cleansing ritual that usually involved killing something valuable and burying it. But here's where it gets dark. Twin babies were considered evil omens sent by Allah to test the community, so they were taken into the forest and left to die. This wasn't rare. Documented cases continued into the early 1900s. The reasoning was that twins were supernatural, not fully human, and keeping them would bring crop failure and disease to everyone. Allah also governed the afterlife, which meant even if you lived a perfect life, you still had to face her judgment after death. Her priests could declare anyone cursed, and there was no appeal process. Entire family lines could be marked as corrupted by Allah's will, making them untouchable in society. Exactly the kind of system ripe for abuse. Number 4. Mictlantecutli, the Aztec lord of the dead, and this guy makes Apuch look friendly. Mictlantecutli ruled Mictlan, the lowest level of the underworld, where most people ended up after death. His appearance was described as a skeleton covered in human blood, wearing a necklace of human eyeballs with his liver hanging out of his ribcage. Pleasant. But the really messed up part was the journey to reach him. Dead souls had to pass through 9 levels of trials over 4 years. You'd be cut by obsidian winds that would flay your spirit's flesh. You'd cross mountains that slammed together to crush you. You'd navigate a river of blood filled with jaguars. And even if you made it through all that, when you finally reached Mictlantecutli, he'd just eat you, not metaphorically. The Aztec believed your soul would be consumed and dissolved into nothingness. No reincarnation, no eternal rest, just erased. The only way to avoid this fate was to die in specific ways, in battle, in childbirth, or as a sacrifice. Everyone else was Mictlantecutli food. The Aztecs were so afraid of him that they'd put obsidian blades in the mouths of corpses to help them defend themselves on the journey. Like you're sending your dead grandma off with a knife to fight skeleton god. That's the level of terror we're talking about. Number 3. Moloch. So this one's controversial because historians argue whether Moloch was actually a god or just a type of sacrifice. But ancient sources describe him as a bronze statue with a bull's head and human body, with outstretched arms and a fire pit in his belly. The worship practice was simple and absolutely horrific. You'd place your infant child in his burning arms as an offering. Phoenician and Carthaginian texts refer to this directly, and archaeological sites have uncovered mass graves of children's remains with evidence of burning. Roman historians documented seeing these rituals and being completely horrified, which says something because Romans were not squeamish people. The justification was that Moloch would grant military victory or end droughts in exchange for the most precious sacrifice possible. Parents who refused were ostracized or killed themselves. Some accounts describe drums being played loudly during the rituals, so the parents wouldn't hear their children screaming. The Carthaginians apparently did this so frequently that some families ran out of children and had to borrow them from poorer families. When Romans finally conquered Carthage, they specifically mentioned destroying Moloch worship as a moral victory. Even ancient civilizations that practiced human sacrifice regularly drew a line at burning babies. Several biblical texts reference Moloch specifically as the ultimate evil, which is saying something in a book full of plagues and genocides. Number 2. Apep. The ancient Egyptians believed the sun traveled through the underworld every night and had to survive an attack from Apep, a chaos serpent who wanted to devour reality itself, not conquer it, not rule it, erase it. Apep was described as miles long, made of pure darkness with a roar that could shatter stone. His goal was to eat the sun god Ra and plunge the world into eternal nothing. Every single night, according to Egyptian theology, Ra's boat would sail through the underworld and Apep would attack. Other gods would fight him off, but he could never be killed because he was chaos incarnate. He'd just reform and attack again the next night, forever. The Egyptians were so terrified of Apep that they had daily rituals specifically to weaken him. Priests would create wax models of Apep, write his name in hieroglyphs, then ritually destroy them while reciting curses. This happened every single day across Egypt. Thousands of priests spending hours just cursing a snake god to make sure the sun would come up tomorrow. And here's the existential horror. They believed if they ever stopped, if the rituals ever failed, Apep would win and reality would just end. Not in fire, not in ice, just cease to exist. Every eclipse was seen as Apep briefly winning. The panic during solar eclipses was apocalyptic. People thought reality was ending in real time. Number 1, the dreaming god. So here's where we get into verified historical mystery territory. Aboriginal Australian oral traditions, some of the oldest continuous stories on Earth, reference something they won't name directly. It's called different things by different groups, but anthropologists labeled it the dreaming god, and it's not like the other creator spirits in Aboriginal mythology. This thing was described as existing in the space between waking and sleeping, and it would trap people in dreams they couldn't wake up from. The affected person would seem to be awake, talking, moving, but they were actually still asleep, sometimes for days. And during that time, the dreaming god would slowly eat their spirit, their identity, until the person woke up as basically an empty shell. No memory, no personality, just biological functions. Multiple Aboriginal groups have documented cases of this happening, and they all describe the same symptoms. The person's eyes would move wrong, like they were watching something no one else could see. They'd respond to questions, but the answers wouldn't quite make sense. And they'd be cold to the touch even in hot weather. The really disturbing part is that Aboriginal cultures had strict taboos against speaking about this entity in detail because they believed describing it would attract its attention. Elders would only discuss it in whispers using metaphors. When anthropologists tried to document these stories in the 1800s and 1900s, multiple Aboriginal groups independently told them to stop asking or they'd be cursed. Some anthropologists who pushed the issue reported having intense recurring nightmares, and 2 supposedly died in their sleep shortly after. Now that's probably coincidence, but it was enough that academic interest in this particular entity dropped off hard. There are literally sections in archived anthropological journals where researchers note they're discontinuing this line of inquiry for unspecified reasons. The few detailed accounts that exist describe the dreaming god as something that predates the Dreamtime creation stories, which in Aboriginal cosmology means it's older than reality itself. It was here before the world was made, and it's still here in the spaces between thoughts. Several Aboriginal cultures believe it's the source of what Western medicine calls dissociative disorders, night terrors, and catatonia. They see those conditions as the person being partially caught between worlds, halfway eaten, and there's no ritual to fix it, no way to fight back. You just hope it doesn't notice you. Solved. If you thought those were disturbing, wait until you hear about the gods that required self-mutilation to even approach, where cutting off your own fingers was just the entry fee to ask for help.